Hello friends! Recently Ubisoft Australia invited me to be a part of the Ubisoft Creator Program, and thanks to Ubisoft Australia, I got to watch some deep dive previews of Star Wars Outlaws. Now, for those of you who don't know, I am a massive Star Wars fan, with Star Wars Jedi Survivor being my game of the year for 2023, so in Massive Entertainment, the developers behind the Division series, were working on a Star Wars game, I was more than keen for it. So after watching some extensive gameplay footage, I thought I'd do something on why I'm excited for Star Wars Outlaws, with some cool gameplay moments that I saw, as well as something as to why it might be a little bit different to what we've already gotten with recent Star Wars games. Star Wars Outlaws takes place between everyone's favourite Star Wars movie, The Empire Strikes Back, and my personal favourite, Return of the Jedi. Now, we play as Kay, an emerging outlaw making a name for herself in the galaxy. Alongside her companion Nix, we've got our own ship, a reputation to make, and some new friends to make as well along the way. Developed by Massive Games, Star Wars Outlaws is a third-person action shooter, and while most of the shooting combat looks a lot like The Division, there are moments of stealth that kinda feels like it's been pulled out of Splinter Cell, and with the open-world stylings of, say, Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and a bit of Tomb Raider. And, as well, the space combat looks like it's an inspiration and pulls elements from the somewhat recent Star Wars Squadrons. And while Star Wars Jedi Survivor was more of an open world game than Fallen Order, Star Wars Outlaws is an actual open world Star Wars game, with space combat, flying from space to planets seamlessly, and side missions, reputations with crime factions to manage, and a companion Nix, who is a core part of the gameplay. As you'd expect with the open world game as well, there are mini and micro games such as hacking into terminals, and it might be because I've recently played Alien Isolation, but the hacking minigame fits into the world of Star Wars, like it's got that 70s aesthetic to it. Kay can also slice into doors like R2-D2, but she doesn't have an astromech like Cal from the Jedi series, and she slices into the doors herself using a tool that she keeps in her hair, which I thought was kinda cool. Outlaws gameplay and mission looks like it can be tackled as well in a variety of different ways, and again, thanks to Ubisoft Australia and the Content Creator Program, myself and some other creators got to take a look at 3 missions on 3 different planets or areas. Now, the gameplay footage you can see highlights the difference between cover-based shooting, blasting everything you can, or sneaking in to avoid unwanted attention, as well as some platforming and some puzzling. General combat, well, as you can see, Star Wars Outlaws is a third-person shooter similar to that of the Division series that Massive Entertainment did. Kay has access to her standard blaster with 3 different modes that can be used for firing. You've got your plasma, which is your standard red blaster fire and does general damage. You've got Ion Shot, which deals damage to droids and deflector shields, and finally Kay can use stun shots to quietly knock out enemies. However, this does run on a cooldown and it can't be spammed. One of Kay's main or key abilities as well is using a Deadeye styled system, a little bit like Red Dead, or the Execute ability from Splinter Cell Conviction and Blacklist, where she can slow down time, tag a select number of enemies, and then immediately take them out. What's cool too is Kay can pick up and use other weapons that aren't her pistol. Like in this moment, she picks up and uses a E11 blaster. And this might be the first time since, Disney bought Star Wars where an E11 blaster uses some kind of ammo counter, as there is a little gauge that drops when the blaster is fired. Now, yeah, it could be an overheating style of system, sure, but I also don't think we've seen an E11 with a limited use like this before, since maybe the old Jedi Academy games or the original Battlefronts. Now, it's worth noting too is that Kay isn't a Jedi. It's kind of stating the obvious, but she also can't take a heap of shots. Her health drops quickly when she gets hit. However, it looks like Kay can use portable Bacta stims to boost her health, as well as also a small side note, when Kay is firing without aiming, she'll shoot from the hip, which is a bit similar or to the styling of Han Solo, or at least I thought so. But stealth gameplay, it looks like it's been pulled straight out of Splinter Cell, and I'm all for it. The companion of Nix can be used to distract enemies, open doors, steal items from guards like keycards, and Nix can also highlight enemies and even sounds like footsteps. In stealth, Kay can quietly knock out guards, whistle to gain their attention, also while, Nix is highlighting everything around you. As we've seen in other trailers and in the Ubisoft Forward, and we already know, but Outlaws is an open world game with ship combat and flying from space to planets seamlessly, and it's pretty damn impressive. The ship combat looks like it's a simplified version of Star Wars Squadrons, with the dials on the side of the screen where you can control your speed, you can see your hull health, your deflector shields, and special abilities like activating a turret. With some of the gameplay footage and missions we got to take a look at, we get to escape an Imperial docking station with some cargo, and we gain the attention of the Empire. And we get a wanted status as well from doing these actions. And it looks like the Empire are going to play a similar role and work a little bit similar to the wanted levels from the police in Grand Theft Auto as well. And it also had me curious on what wanted levels will look like. Will we get a Star Destroyer chasing us down if we've got a full 5-star or 6-star wanted level? Are there Death Troopers, Imperial Commandos, the Imperial Security Bureau? I don't think we'll get Inquisitors, as we're not a Jedi, and I'm fairly sure the Inquisitors are all gone by this sort of moment in the timeline, but I am curious to see what the top tier threat is for us in Outlaws when it comes to the Empire. But the companion character of Nyx. Now, they aren't just this cute furry animal that follows us around. Nyx is an actual useful side character and does more than BD1. But it looks like Massive Entertainment have made a companion character that looks and feels unique and just isn't a blatant ripoff of BD1. Nyx can distract enemies, steal key items from guards, use his sense ability to not only sense guards or threats, but to also highlight important items of traversal puzzles. Nyx also doesn't just sit on Kay's shoulder, they more so act like a cat or dog, acting as an independent companion character who will be by your side and will only jump on your back for traversal puzzles or areas that Nyx themselves can't actually climb up and use. And I gotta state the obvious, yeah, this thing is pretty damn cute and it's acting for playing dead, it's top-notch performance. Speaking of traversal though, there are gameplay moments that look like they've been pulled out of Assassin's Creed or Tomb Raider, and there's one mission we got to see Kay make her way through an old Republic cruiser looking for an old nav computer, and this entire mission just looked like a platforming puzzle, and I kind of enjoy these moments as they break up the combat and just let you immerse yourself a bit more into the game. But one of the key things in Outlaws is, well, you're not a Jedi, you're a smuggler, you're wanting to make a name for yourself in the galaxy, so you're doing missions and building reputations with different crime factions, and with one mission we got to see sneaking into the Crimson Dawn outpost. Now, if that faction sounds familiar, that is the one Maul is in charge of at the end of Solo, a Star Wars story. Now, we need to sneak in, we need to steal a relic for a rival faction to give it to them, and being seen or going out and doing loud things in these kinds of missions look like they can negatively affect your reputation with that gang. As well, some other things that I noticed, that Crimson Dawn's outpost is on the planet of Kijimi, and if that sounds familiar, that's the snow planet from The Rise of Skywalker. There are also references to newer Star Wars films as well, with Kay being from Canto Bight, which is the casino planet from The Last Jedi.
What? Yeah, I'm from Canto Bight. Good.
We also hear a guard mention the change of leadership within Crimson Dawn.
I think there's been a few different leaders of Crimson Dawn. Don't know the whole story, but I'm glad Kira's in charge now.
And as the game is set between Episode 5 and Episode 6, the Empire, I'd say, is at their most powerful or feared state, as they've put the rebels on the back foot, so they have Imperial outposts and check-ins at spaceports and what looks like on some planets as well. This is a little bit similar to what we see in sort of Solo, a Star Wars movie, which personally I kinda liked, except for the subtitled Chewbacca scene. That was a bit weird. Now, I think it's safe to say that I'm excited for Star Wars Outlaws. Now, I love The Division, so the team behind working on The Division doing a Star Wars game sounds great to me. But watching the gameplay demos, I did have some questions or some eyebrow-raising moments here or there. Now, that's not to say I'm not excited for Outlaws, and these aren't negatives, they're just something I noticed in general. Firstly, I noticed Kay doesn't snap into cover like in The Division or Gears of War, she more so just kinda hovers behind it. Personally, found it a bit weird, but it's not a big deal. Second, enemies and guards don't hear things like, say, the stun shot, which I thought was a bit weird, but this may be different if you're playing on higher difficulties though. It's interesting to see that the E11 blaster will run on a overheat or a limited time use style of system, but I had myself go, why drop it and run? Why not hold on to it? But it looks like as well Kay's blaster has more uses than the E11 too. Finally, and this is probably the biggest eyebrow raising moment for me, but we see Kay knock out a stormtrooper with a punch and it kinda looked a bit silly. I understand we need to be quiet and take out guards without alerting anyone nearby, but still using a fist on a stormtrooper like it's a helmet. I think it could have been cool if we used her gun, say like the butt of her gun, to knock them out, but who knows, maybe Kay has a robot hand that we've not seen in the game yet. But if Kay has a robot hand, then yeah, it kind of makes sense that she could punch out a stormtrooper. But when I saw this, I found it a bit weird, and it reminded me of that one brief scene from the Obi-Wan TV series, and it had me laughing. Now this probably goes without saying, but I'm super excited for Star Wars Outlaws. The TV shows have been real hit and miss for me, but the Star Wars video games have been pretty damn good. I loved the Jedi Survivor and the Jedi Fallen Order series. Squadrons was fun, Battlefront turned into something beautiful, and I think Outlaws has the potential to be another great Star Wars game. And while I've seen some comments saying that this isn't the first open world Star Wars game, as we've had Knights of the Old Republic and the MMO RPG that followed it, but this is the first game we've had since Disney purchased Star Wars, and we've not had an open world Star Wars game like this since Knights of the Old Republic 2. What I really like about this though is that EA is making a Souls-like version of a Star Wars game with lightsaber combat in the Jedi series. They've got a new character with Cal, and it's set between episode 3 and episode 4 with the rise of the Empire. Now while yes, there are some open world aspects to Jedi Survivor and you can planet hop, I wouldn't say it's a completely open world game, as some planets and areas are a bit linear. While Ubisoft on the other hand are making a smuggling third-person action shooter title set between episode 5 and 6, after the Empire has dealt a major blow to the Rebel Alliance. We're going to planets where there are outposts and the Empire have checkpoints and a presence. We can planet hop, we have a speeder bike to get around worlds, there are different crime organisations to work with or to piss off. And Nyx doesn't feel like a BD1 ripoff. They are separate characters, and while they're both support characters or companions, yes, they both have their own unique purpose and sort of look and feel to them. Finally, thank you again to Ubisoft ANZ for allowing me to look at Star Wars Outlaws. My mate at Ubisoft knows how much I love Star Wars, and this opportunity to look at Outlaws has been awesome. Star Wars Outlaws, of course, releases in August of 2024, and I will be covering it on this channel. So, should you have any questions for my review, pop them down in the comments below, and I'll get to them when I make the review video. But whether you've been a fan of Star Wars since you first saw Luke ignite a green lightsaber, or your favourite stories in the Star Wars universe are around the clones and the Bad Batch, always remember to play with each other and play with yourself.